Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about a mutable Grand Cross configuration. Now, a mutable Grand Cross is an astrological configuration or aspect pattern that consists of 2 oppositions and 4 squares, with all 4 planets and or points being in the 4 mutable signs, of course. Now, it can suggest a lot of fluctuation, vacillation, ambivalence, ambiguity, a lot of changing of the mind, a strong lack of follow-through and persistence. It can show strong powers of adaptability, though, and it could indicate a strong ability to extricate oneself out of certain dilemmas. Now, it could also and also dealing with adverse circumstances, it can be good as far as that goes, but this is like a mutable T-square, but the difference is, of course, it's double the aspects, and therefore it's double the intensity. Now, in a mutable T-square, you're going to have the 1 opposition and 2 squares, but in this you have 2 oppositions and 4 squares, so you have 6 adverse aspects in total, and that can make it a lot of negative changeable energy that one has to contend or deal with. Now, in this particular chart, this is a music legend, Bobby Darin, and let me show you where his mutable Grand Cross points are located. They're all planets in this case. Mercury in Gemini, the 1st house, then it's Neptune in Virgo in the 5th, Jupiter in Sagittarius in the 8th, and Saturn in Pisces in the 11th house. Well, first thing I'm going to look at, we'll look at the 2 oppositions first. Now, in the 2 oppositions, we have a Mercury opposition Jupiter is the first one, and by sign alone you have obviously you have a big disparity, because even though they're both mutable, adaptable signs, Gemini is often about learning superficially and can learn very quick, assimilate a lot of information in a short amount of time, but may lack the persistence in this. Now, Sagittarius may lack tenacity and persistence as well, but I see Sagittarius as being more for the long haul in terms of, say, like things connected with higher education and learning subjects more thoroughly. Sagittarius is often about broad concepts, and Gemini may not always learn everything to its fullest, despite them being quick-witted. Mercury in Gemini and Jupiter and Sagittarius are both in their dignity, so that helps in this particular situation. So at least the energies are expressed very strongly, but the opposition still applies. And when you have Mercury opposite Jupiter, it can give sometimes a propensity toward perhaps exaggeration or distortion of facts, and the exaggeration may not always be deliberate. It could just be that the person sometimes might magnify maybe something from time to time. Now we'll look at the next opposition. The next opposition is going to be Saturn in Pisces oppose Neptune in Virgo. Now, by sign, you have that strong disparity again, with the Virgo being analytical and being all about details, but then you have Pisces, which is more about the whole picture, but may overlook significant details. Now, in this particular aspect, this could indicate somebody that has difficulty distinguishing what may be veracious, and as far as that, and from what might be fallacious. You have the Neptune in the 5th. This could show perhaps disillusionment or delusion in connection with romance, and maybe that is what would be strongly tied into the maybe having a difficulty as far as certain things that are not really always what they appear to be, and finding this balance between what's real and what's real with as far as Saturn goes. And it doesn't help that Saturn is in Pisces, and that in itself could indicate perhaps a strong lack of pragmatism and practicality, so that can make it even more difficult. So anyway, the next aspect we're going to look at is going to be, okay, Mercury square Neptune. So Mercury square Neptune could indicate sometimes convoluted, chaotic, or confused thinking, even though what saves this is Mercury being in Gemini, of course, is very, can be adroit at many subjects and can learn a lot of subjects, assimilate a lot in a short amount of time, but it still can make the thinking sometimes a little bit befuddled and confused, having this particular aspect. And a lot of it might be in connection perhaps with things maybe of a love, of a romantic nature, and these things could indicate maybe there's some confusion as far as that goes, having Neptune in the 5th house. So this is something to consider in this aspect. And you have this more of this conflicting energy by sign, with Virgo is more of the pragmatic intellect and analytical, and you have the Gemini, which is somewhat superficial and just like really doesn't always stick with everything readily. So you have that as well. And let's go to the next. The next square is going to be Neptune square Jupiter in this chart. So with Neptune squaring Jupiter, this could indicate somebody that might be perhaps deceived or beguiled in terms of incorrect or fallacious philosophies, or maybe the person may delude himself in these matters with their own philosophies, or they could be indoctrinated by someone else that isn't really giving them the best perhaps advice as far as the things of a philosophical nature goes. It could indicate perhaps confusion in connection with maybe higher learning, for example, and that is something to look at as far as that aspect goes. Now, the next square aspect is going to be between Jupiter and Sagittarius and Saturn in Pisces. Now, the Jupiter square Saturn may indicate responsibilities, may conflict with the expansive, exuberant side of Jupiter in Sagittarius here. So this could be something where perhaps maybe with Saturn in Pisces, this could show certain lack of pragmatism or practicality, and having maybe lack of being grounded could perhaps indicate maybe some maybe being as far as over optimistic, maybe to some degree, and maybe there can be some difficulty as far as that goes. It could show that maybe this person's exuberance and enthusiasm might be squelched a little bit due to this a negative aspect, and maybe things that were in connection with maybe some kind of delusion or deception or some, because you have Pisces here and it's in the 11th house of friends and group involvement. Maybe something here does something to squelch perhaps the exuberant, buoyant side of Jupiter to some degree, or maybe the person has difficulty expressing that ebullient, exuberant side due to the responsibilities and maybe limitations in this person's life, which is indicated by Saturn. So that is another thing to look at as far as that aspect goes. And last but not least, we have the square between Saturn in Pisces and Mercury in Gemini. Now that square, that can suggest perhaps a strong pessimistic or negative thinking, and this could be a person that might be very judgmental of oneself, and even with Mercury in Gemini in its dignity, this person can learn a lot very quickly, but even so might not be satisfied with what is learned, and this could be a person with this aspect could be doing a lot of second guessing what they said, and really and maybe thinking too much about what was said previously. Was this said with the right words? Did I articulate this right? And so on and so forth. So that is something where all these things can somehow be synchronized with this strong changeability and vacillation that is connected with one having a mutable Grand Cross configuration in their chart. So the houses that are emphasized with all this change, of course, okay, the first house of self, which is the outlook on life, and then you have the fifth, which is creative endeavors, romance, things of enjoyment, and the eighth house is connected strongly with others, resources, and it's connected with transformation, change, and perhaps things related to insurance, inheritance, and perhaps even a sexual partner. And last but not least, we have the 11th house, where Saturn and Pisces is in, and the 11th house is more, it can show this strong change and vacillation, fluctuation connected with friends, organizations, groups, and things of that nature. So that's where I would see Bobby Darin may have had a lot of that strong, a lot of that changeable activity going on during his life. So anyway, people, that will conclude this YouTube astrological segment for having a mutable Grand Cross configuration in a natal chart. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be talking about the Yod configuration in a natal horoscope. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.